This is the Go Radio Business Show.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Willie. It's nice to see you back from your travels.
Well tanned.
Well tanned, as they say in the horseshoe bar. But anyway, listen, you were going from Australia back into Singapore. You have piqued my interest in Singapore. It's always been somewhere that I was really interested in. But anything else to tell the listeners and the viewers that you've learned in Singapore that we could steal for Scotland?
Well, what I think we'll do is, over the next couple of weeks, once I get some more detail, right, I'd like to expand, and I think we could have a whole show on what Scotland would look like if it copied the Singapore model. But the one thing that you would love, if you go to YouTube, Tom, I mentioned the man who made Singapore, who's called Lee Kuan Yew.
Yes.
Right? He's the godfather of Singapore. And there's a brilliant film that you would love. You would have this as your screensaver. It shows him standing up at a podium saying, if you want to pay for duds, meaning MPs, then you get duds. Right? So just to reiterate, we mentioned it last week, the MPs in Singapore, their standard salary for an MP is £350,000. If you're a minister, it's £500,000. That's when you get real clever people running your country.
Right. So since you've been there, I've always had an interest in it, but I've never actually been. But because you've spoke about it so highly, at the Hunter Foundation, we have employed Oxford Economics, who were the people, if you remember, who did a report on Ireland and what Scotland had learned. And I've asked
Very good report.
Yeah, thank you. I've asked them to do a piece on Singapore now and what we can learn, both what Scotland could learn in its current makeup, legal framework, let's just call it, and what we would need to get Westminster's permission to perhaps change. Because, you know, we've got elections coming up, Willie, next year. And I think if it's just more of the same, our education standards are falling, our NHS, quite frankly, is broken in terms of waiting lists and patient outcomes. And I would say our economy is lackluster. So we need some bold thinking here. So I've got Oxford Economics looking into this, and if you're willing to give us the show, once we get it, we can get the people on and we can really get into a debate about it, Willie.
Right, brilliant. Well, I look forward to that. And if their report is as comprehensive as the one in Dublin Ireland, I can't wait to see it. So that's good news. And obviously we'll share that with the listeners and the viewers.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's just about, you know, releasing this entrepreneurial spirit. This isn't about making wealthy entrepreneurs more wealthy. And I'm fed up saying to people, hey, this isn't to help me become wealthier. I'm quite happy with the amount of money I've got. I want to make every citizen in Scotland wealthier. And Singapore has one of the highest GDP per capita in the world, Willie.
Couldn't believe it. When they went independent in 1965, the output per head, the capita, and their GDP was $1,200.
Right.
Today it is $86,000 per person.
Wow. So
that is unbelievable.
You know, for all these left-wingers and green MSPs who think we're just trying to line our pockets, hey, I don't need any more money. I'm very happy, but Scotland's people need more money. And that's what you and I and others like us are trying to do. So we need to open our minds. We need to think of the big ideas for Scotland. And quite frankly, if you pay for duds, that's what you get.
But Tom, and you're so right, and you just touched on it there, one of the things that Lee Kuan Yew done was he demonstrated that socialism needs capitalism.
Yes, indeed.
That's what he done. The two can coexist side by side and they both need each other. So I think that as again, we'll pick a week in the next few weeks to discuss more and more, and we'll maybe wait until the report's done. But fascinating. And see the point you made earlier, which I think is a really good one. We really need to know what levers we do have and don't have. Right, what tax powers we have. And also what we should look at is, let's look at what does fiscal autonomy look like?
Yep.
You know, what does Scotland look like with a sovereign wealth fund, if it was possible, all the things. And I think the one thing that he done in Singapore was he got the people to totally get behind everything that he wanted to do, and that was the key.
Yeah.
That was the key.
That's the
Right?
key, Willie. And the
Right.
and the
So-
educational outcomes for the youth of Singapore are amongst the best in the world. And their health system, the outcomes for those using the health system are the best in the world. So what's not to like? Who- but
exactly.
but I'm sure there's some miserable folk in Scotland who'll take us to task. But I look forward to debating it with them.
But no, we need to do what he did back in the day. We need to swat all these miserable folk. We need vision, right? We need idea about how we make the country better. We've got to just trample on them.
Yep. And what I'm
Simple
saying,
as that.
what I'm saying today, Willie, is for the elections in 26, if it's just more of the same, then forget it.
Yep, I agree totally. Right, let's get back to here in business. Obviously, some of the indicators this week, they're saying that there's a good chance that maybe interest rates very quickly might be back down to 2%. Right, there's
Yep.
going to be that many cuts, so I don't know how that is. And I've seen that the inflation figures for wage growth in month is frightening, 5.9%.
Right.
So that's a worry. That's a worry.
It's a kind of mixed message, Willie, isn't it?
Yes.
Because there was a survey done amongst employers, and they're saying before the NI increases that are coming in April for all employers, these businesses are going to cut their workforce. It's something I've argued about right from the minute I heard it. I said, this is going to reduce the tax take. They're going to put the tax rate up, the NI rate up, but it's going to bring in less because people will cut their cloth accordingly. So
Yep.
if wages are going up, but people are paying people off, I don't quite get it, but that's the way economics works. The thing they say about economists, they've predicted 9 out of the last 3 recessions. So
Right. But I think you're right, and the point is for the people who are quietly buoyed by the stats today, the unemployment has not went up by beyond 4.4%. Trust me, wait till you see the next quarter.
right, okay. And
This is when all the companies have to adjust for the NI contributions now starting to be paid. Watch this space. I'm still saying that unemployment in the next 9 months could go beyond 5%.
wow. So wouldn't that be some politician shooting herself in the foot and shooting the country right between the eyes, I would say.
Yep. So someone known to both of us, James Watt, has caused a wee bit of a star. He caused a bit of a star before I went away, and now he's even caused a bigger star. Yeah, old pal. So he's trying to follow in the footsteps of our friends across the water, where he wants to set up a shadow dodge in an attempt to mirror the influence of business on government, the way that Elon Musk is trying to do in the States. But he's kind of trying to set up his body where whistleblowers can tell him about inefficiency, and he promises to release monthly reports highlighting what savings could be made.
Right. So I think you and I might disagree in this.
Yeah.
I love James and his ideas. At least he's coming up with ideas, Willie. There's
No, Sam, I need to take you to task. No, he isn't. He's copying one.
Well,
He's
that's
not coming up with
okay.
ideas. No, but it's a big difference.
No, but is that not okay? He's trying to.
No, it is.
He's trying to do it in Scotland, and if ever there was a public sector, a bloated public sector that needed sorted, it's Scotland. The public sector workforce in Scotland is 22% of the GDP. It's only 17% in the rest of the UK. So I applaud James. The only thing I'm slightly worried about is Elon Musk was invited in. James has not been invited. So he's having to do it through freedom of information requests and whistleblowers. It's not going to be as effective as Elon, but he's having a go, Willie. You need to say, somebody who's having a go, come on, stop being miserable from your holidays.
No, I'm saying that James Watt is a very clever guy. I'm just saying, come up with your own ideas. That's what I'm saying.
But if somebody's got
That's
a
all
good
I'm saying.
idea, let's copy it.
Right? The good thing that me and you, I don't need to tell you, anything as unofficial as that, it doesn't matter what he comes up with, the Scottish Government will listen to him.
Well, but we can't just have that attitude and then no try, Willie. We need to try and influence. That's what the show's about, Willie.
Well, what I would say, if we want to talk about it, and you were right, we might disagree about it, what I'd rather do is, I'd just rather do what Donald Trump is doing right now and take a wrecking ball to the public service that isn't working.
Well, listen.
Yeah, well, I might be more radical. I'm not waiting for them to whistle blowing. I know it's bloated.
Why not? But you know, how do we as voters have influence? I don't quite know how to do it, Willie. But this show has got a voice. I was on a plane this week. Guy in front of me said, "Love the podcast," and you know, and that was a 6:30 a.m. flight to London City. This was somebody who's getting up in the morning, leaving Glasgow 6:30. I was at my bed at 4 in the morning to get to into the city. And these are the hardworking people who are paying for all this bloated public sector in Scotland. So they should have a say, Willie.
Definitely, but I think that, you know, we mean your experiences, to be fair, we don't need to wait about for any whistleblowers to come and tell us about how bad it is. We know how bad it is. So let's just move to phase 2. Base 2, I think, as they say in the States, second base, and just say, base 2.
Well,
right. So, but you were right, we might disagree about that. You can see I've come back to Singapore as an angry man.
You were an angry man before you went, Willie.
To line things up, right, Scotland has always been famous for producing rockets. I mean, you've met most of them, right? But a company you mentioned like a couple of weeks ago that were in the top 50 in the Sunday Times list, yes. Skyrora, is actually now constructing a 23-metre rocket called the XL to deliver to small satellites to space. This is brilliant.
I love it, Willie. I love it. So I can't quite get the name right. It sounds like Kiora to me.
Skyrora.
So, I saw they were doing that. I also saw a drone operator based down in Melrose in the Borders has been given a loan from the British Business Bank, the Scottish division, to spray crops. So rather than these wee planes coming down, they're going to do it with drones. So again, there's a guy called James Braid of Skypin Drones. So Scotland's full of these ideas. So I think it's absolutely brilliant. Brilliant.
Yep, it is. And I think, you know, especially in high tech, you know, it'd be brilliant to, and we mentioned Singapore, and that's where they've done great, but the more and more of this that we need, and to be fair, because of the actual situation of what they need, they're all rural.
Yes.
Right, which is brilliant. You know, we need that help better than anywhere else. But I think that we can't go through this segment without mentioning what's going on, you know, with Mr. Trump and the Ukraine war and the Israeli situation in Gaza and all that stuff. And some of the things that have been said this week are basically frightening. And I'm talking about the effect that that's going to have on the global on business. Yeah, right? It's just.
I mean, J.D. Vance came across to Europe and he kind of hit us all between the eyes. Again, some of the stuff, Willie, I actually agree with, but he goes to extremes just like his boss. And see if he just kept it saying, right, this isn't right, Europe hasn't stepped up, then I think a lot of people would say, you're right, but then they kind of take it to the extreme and say you can't pray in your house in Scotland, which is not correct, is it?
Well, what about, they're in the middle of a huge crisis, they're there to try and stop, you know, an escalation of 2 wars, and he wants to bring up the point about Britain should be ashamed of itself with its record on free speech. Right. I talk about thousands and thousands of people getting killed in conflicts.
Yeah.
And they want to make a point about how right-wing they are, what they're doing. I thought that was absolutely scary. I thought, talk about not being on the same page.
So, I mean, once again, Willie, at least Donald Trump is making moves to perhaps finish the war. But why on earth has he not included Zelensky around the table? How can you say, I'm at war with you, but I'll speak to someone else and I'll keep you out of it? I mean, it doesn't really make sense.
And especially you want to go to Saudi Arabia and sit around the table with BMS to talk about bringing peace. I mean, that's an oxymoron if you ever heard one. Right, seriously, but it's if it wasn't so serious, it would be laughable.
Yeah.
Right? It's scary. It's absolutely scary. And I say again, the knock-on effect now for the economies with the tariffs and all the things that are doing, it's absolutely frightening. Frightening.
So
I don't know where we go for here. I don't know where this is going to end.
no, I mean there's every morning I wake up and I read the papers and I can't quite believe it. But I wonder if Elon Musk is beginning to think, maybe I shouldn't have got involved here, because there's been protests against him. His Tesla stock's down 12% from the beginning of the year. There's people outside his showrooms saying, stop it, Elon. And, when you're as outspoken as he is and you've got a business, I don't know if that's a good mixture, Willie.
If you're involved in business, you cannot be involved in politics.
Is that
right? Because no matter what way you
been my
can't win.
rule.
Yeah, you can't win. You cannot win.
No.
Right, I remember, back in the day when I had things to say, whatever, independence, whatever it might be, then you've got a group of people wanting to have a go at you. So for him, you're right. But to be fair, you're probably looking at the other side of it and think, oh, well, I've got, 131 billion in contracts for the government, so I don't care if a few people over here don't want to buy my cars.
No.
But I'll tell you now, I said it to you at the time, I'm going to say it again. I wouldn't like to be an investor in Tesla at the moment.
Well, the stock's down 12%.
Yeah.
Let's see where it goes, Willie.
Talking about stocks down, we've mentioned the Wood Group various times, and what a success story it's been for Scotland. But I see at the moment that their share price, and they're struggling, and maybe talking about redundancies for the first time in a long time. This is no good news, is it?
No, I mean, I haven't really followed it since Ian Wood sold down his shareholding. Willie, of course, Ian holding the highest estimation because he built from a fishing business to be a world leader in oil and gas, servicing, etc. But when I read this week, which was the first time I've read about it in a while, it seems they're in a lot of difficulty. There's been some misstated finances. It just seems, no, that's not good news, Willie. And it's not good news for Scotland because they still employ a lot of people here.
You got 6,000 people here and 35,000 worldwide. Interesting, you touched on something a few weeks ago. It's got a wee bit of traction this week about nuclear reactors as part of the solution for our energy. And I see that the UK government has entered into talks with an American company called Last Energy. It could be the first new nuclear reactors in the country since Torness way back in 1978.
Yeah.
But these are new modern, reactors which they're saying are ultra safe.
Yes.
And I don't think there's any doubt, Tom, that nuclear will have to be part of the mix going forward, especially if we want to drive people's energy costs down.
Well, MD, it's not my specialist subject, but MD I speak to because I'm interested in it. So Bill Gates has been looking at this. Jeff Bezos of Amazon, who I think owns that company you're talking about. And the technology, of course, has moved on, Willie, from the time it was really dangerous, etc. And everybody that I've spoken to said, look, Britain has one of the highest energy costs in the world. Now, I don't quite understand why, but if we want to have a better energy cost base, which, if our energy costs are high, then our manufacturing industries are at a disadvantage to compete in the world. Therefore, nuclear has got to be part of the mix. And of course, our Scottish government at the present time is banned it, is against it, and will not have it on Scottish soil.
Yeah, and I think that this is a problem, and obviously a lot of people have to have a look, because there's no doubt in my mind that in this transition away from fossil fuels and whatever we're doing, that nuclear is going to be a part of the solution, I think, for a lot, at least for the next generation.
Yeah. So let's get our energy costs down. Let's get them down, Willie.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Tom, great guest on the show this week, Ryan Clark. He's the CEO and founder of the Safer Group. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me on, Willie. Thanks very much, Tom. Nice to meet both of you.
Hello, Ryan. Listen, I've been reading notes on you. Sean the Sheep sends these notes through. So I think the listeners are going to love your story this morning. And the one thing Willie always says to our guests is remember and plug your business. So what in your background, Ryan, had you marked out to be an entrepreneur?
It's a good question. I thought I was thinking about this on the way in, and for as long as I can remember, I'd always really wanted to be involved in business. It didn't really matter to me so much what business it was. I just had a fascination about business. I had a fascination about, I used to be fascinated by rags to riches stories. I always loved the idea of being able to make a better future for myself. And it was, in terms of looking back at, what led to here, I think it was more, in my case, it was something that was always in me, from a young age. And then, going
Anything
through...
in your background, Ryan? Was your mum and dad or anything in your family in business?
So my dad had a removals business
Right.
when I was younger. So I got it never lasted for long, but it did leave an impression on me. Seeing him with that business. I used to help him collect the £50 notes and £20 notes and put them into piles. He was always talking. He was always talking to me.
It's a
about
great
these.
feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a good feeling. Yeah, but yeah, so it was good. I always had that sense from a young age that business and working for yourself allowed you the possibility to grow a business and create a good future. So that, although it was just a few years, it did leave an impression on me that business, and particularly working for yourself, was an avenue that was interesting to me.
So tell us how you started.
So I started in security really as a temporary job. So I took a job as a security guard. It was supposed to be just a short-term stint to get some money to build an iPhone application. I built the iPhone application. It was a good app, but I couldn't actually sell it. I couldn't convince businesses to actually sign up to the service that was being offered. So that meant I had to keep working in the security industry. I then got promoted within that company, and then the opportunity eventually came to get involved in sales. And I took that opportunity on. It was a good opportunity for me to learn how to sell, which I knew I was not very good at the time. And then during the course of that, the sort of security industry was going through a transition at that time from man guarding to technology. And technology was, I was always interested in technology and electronics and how they worked. And I sort of saw an opportunity there. There was a company called JCB Site Security, who were the first company really to come out with these CCTV systems designed for construction sites. And I started selling them as a consultant. I started building relationships up with construction contractors, and I sort of found a niche for myself where I knew how these systems worked. I had enough experience dealing with construction clients at that point. It was cheaper than traditional security, more effective than traditional security, and I thought there's a really good opportunity here. So then I started Safer Scotland at the time, and I would rehire in the JCB security systems, hire them back out.
Can I ask you, can I stop you?
Yeah.
The JCB, is that part of the JCB group?
It was, yeah. So there's a company called CamWatch that was started by Phil Bunting, and then he did a licensing agreement with
So
JCB.
I'm trying to think, this is very clever. So JCB, obviously all famous for making the equipment. So were they sick and tired of their stuff getting stolen off his sites that they decided to come up with a security system?
No, the sort of masterstroke that was behind that was really down to Phil. So Phil, the technology existed at the time. So you had CCTV cameras, you had the sort of wireless networks where the structure was getting built up at the time. But really, the construction sector was so focused on traditional man guarding that nobody would really give technology a chance. So Phil sort of paying you whatever percentage you paid to JCB to put that JCB branding on it, gave it instant
Right? What?
credibility. So yeah, we're very, very good idea.
Very good.
So Phil, I spoke to Phil. I was sort of representing the company in Scotland. I was sort of dealing with the construction clients, putting the towers out, and then it sort of came to a point where, you know, Phil had sold his business, and you know, there was the way that I wanted to deliver the service was different from the way that business was delivering the service. So I thought, right, I'll try this, you know, myself, and instead of just doing it where we just provide 3 or 4 towers, charge a rental, and forget about it, I thought if we wrap a really good service element around it, yeah, I think there's something special there. So the first few years was just me working on my own, really, developing relationships with the construction contractors, and then hiring in the JCB systems and then rehiring them out to the customer. And then about 4 years ago, it became sort of obvious to me that we should build our own systems, our own products, because there was about 10 years or so where the industry just never had any innovation. And so the first one of them was the SaferPod S1. Interestingly enough, Phil, who I mentioned earlier, I brought Phil into the company, so he joined us as our CTO, and he helped bring some of the product concepts to life. And then we've developed a number of products since then. So it's been a sort of slow progression for me. What started as a temporary.
So the big question is, has all of that, you know, you're right, it used to be on man guarding, and now you're technology, you're using cameras, you're using other stuff. Has it shown a great reduction in theft from sites? As someone who's about to start to build loads of sites.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, you know, if you think of, so the purpose of security is to obviously reduce the loss.
Shrinkage.
Shrinkage. So the sort of first thing is the cost to the customer has to be proportionate to the risk and what you're spending on it. There's no point spending £2,000-3,000 a week to save £1,000 a week. And then also we want to make sure the reputation of the customer's protected, the site's safe, there's not any, you know, we don't have any videos or TikTokers climbing all over the project at all hours of the night. So there's a whole sort of sphere of risks that we need to look at when looking at it, any project. So in terms of what a security guard did, the way that I looked at it was your security guard typically was tasked with doing a patrol maybe once an hour, then writing down a logbook, the nature of the patrol, and then 90% of the time they were sat in a cabin somewhere. And during that 90% of the time they're sat in a cabin, they can't see anything, they can't see what's going on outside. And then if they do see something, it's a written statement. So the benefit of what we do with the technology that we've put on the site is we can monitor that perimeter constantly. There's no need for witness statements, there's complete transparency. We can see very clearly, by looking back on the images, what's happened or what's not happened. And there's a full audit trail. So if something does happen on site, we can show the customer, we can show any authorities that want to look at it.
So a perfect site for you, is it a site that works without man guards, or is it a bit of both?
It depends. So from a out of hours perspective, you want an absolutely sterile site. So you want a site where it's fenced off, nobody should be there, and then the technology can perfectly monitor it, because anything that gets picked up is going to be easily identifiable as unauthorised. During working hours, if it's a high value site, we probably want to have maybe a security guard on the gate monitoring who comes in, doing a bit of access control. That lends itself more towards, you know, a security guard, a person. But outside of working hours, when a site is empty, you want to stay away from a security guard. You've got a lone worker, you've got safety risks of the security guard himself, and technology just does it better.
So Tom, has it escalated up to you? Have you had any problems in your huge site?
So I don't, we really just sell the land, Willie. So then the house builders come on and it's up to them to deal with it. We have got health and safety concerns about, before we sell the land, you know, is the site unsafe? Are people coming in, etc.? So we do have cameras on that. But once it's handed over to the house builder, that's their responsibility then, Willie.
Do you use technology a lot for your own security?
Yes, we use the cameras, etc., because we're worried that maybe there's an old loch or something, which is, people shouldn't be going into, kids, etc. So we do fence it off, but everybody, kids, if they want to get in, they can get in. But then with an early warning there, and then that triggers an alert, which brings a human being to get the kids to safety as such.
So on your systems, Ryan, can you use them for everything apart from or anything apart from construction sites?
Yeah, so I mean, we use so our systems are used. They were used recently by Morrison's in the Cephalopod S1, which is the smallest unit. That was used in Morrison's in the Spirits Isle, where they were having ridiculous theft taking place. So we've seen a good reduction in shrinkage there. Tesco's have just started deploying them in the car parks in some of their stores where they've got really serious issues with antisocial behaviour and rough sleeping and drugs and things like that. So every deployment has got its own sort of unique characteristics, and it's trying to take a sort of comprehensive view of each customer's needs.
So we've been talking about it for weeks and weeks now about the huge surge in shoplifting and things getting stolen from places. Has that meant a rapid increase in your business?
I wouldn't say it's a rapid increase. I'd say retail. So I think the figures are there was about £1 billion worth of losses due to theft in retail last year. Construction's about £2 billion. The difference is obviously in retail you've got that human factor where supermarkets particularly are a major part of the local community, and people want to feel safe when they're going to do their shopping, people want to feel safe when they're going to work there. So the same system that we use, obviously on a construction site of ours that's working and there's nobody there that's doing their job, when we deploy it to retail, some place like Tesco's in a car park, it's more about how we interact with the public, because it's referring the rough sleepers to the charities that can go and help them, and providing reassurance to the public.
I'm astounded at that number. Theft from construction is double what it is from retail.
Yeah.
Wow, that's scary.
Yeah, it makes sense when you think about it. I mean, you've got millions of pounds worth of assets deployed in plain sight, often protected by just a few panels of Harris fencing. You've got organised criminals throughout the country that plan, to go and attack these sites. And the kit's loaded up into the back of trucks and it's out of the country within hours.
So Ryan, can I ask you, you've gone from learning the industry as an employee, as a consultant, and now you're the owner of the company. How do you keep yourself abreast of the technology? How do you make sure that your business is deploying the best technology? And what's the kind of challenges you've faced, and how have you overcame them as you're growing your business?
I think from the technology side, it's definitely helped that I've got a natural interest in technology. So I'm always just from, if I've got spare time, I'll enjoy watching a documentary about artificial intelligence, for example. So I've got a natural inclination towards understanding it and what's going on. I like to know about what's coming next. If somebody's got a demo or some new kit, I'm all over it. I want to see it. So I like the fact that we are typically the first to come out with new kit. We've established a bit of a reputation in the industry of being the first to adopt a lot of the new technologies, and I'm proud of that.
So on that, is there a big opportunity for you to actually sell yourselves to insurance companies that would recommend you then to some of the big builders?
I actually had that conversation today in our offices. It's interesting because the insurance companies, a lot of the time, their documentation and things that they require of the developers will still state that it will refer a lot to man guarding and security guards on site. So a lot of the time at the minute, our conversation with the insurance companies is to try and get them to recognise the system at least as equivalent to it.
That's really interesting, and I know that you will know this, but if you do have a situation and something goes missing, the insurance companies 9 times out of 10 imply the watch you was into it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and that's one of the good. That's I had some early experience in the sort of early years with just any security work that was going, and that meant some security guards as well. And it's a really difficult service to get right. So you know, and the challenge is that it's open to interpretation.
So I'll tell you how good my security guard is. Last week we thought we seen somebody up in the farm at the top of the hill, and I phoned the security guy and I said, I think there's a guy up in the hill, and he said to me, do you want a torch? I was kind of looking for you to go up and find out where you was up to.
I think you better speak to Ryan, Willie.
Well, I knew the guy was up to no good when I seen him carrying a coup. So where do you be?
Just in the last few minutes we've got, how do people get in touch with you if they're looking to use your services? We're always keen to promote your business in the show.
Most customers who get in touch with us usually get in touch with us first through the website. They can call in. We're operating obviously 24/7. So we do a reactive service, we do planned services. Any security requirement, particularly if it's for a temporary deployment or remote.
So what is the website?
It's a good question, Tom. It's safer-group.com.
Dead easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Dead easy. And where are you based?
So we're based down in Inverclyde, which is where I was born and grew up. So we're down there.
So a local boy makes good and invests in his own town.
Oh, it's a good one. And if I could just mention this before we finish up, because it's important. Inverclyde Council were actually the first. They gave me the funds to actually get my security licence. Back then I was 18 years old, so that got me started in the industry, and so it was important to me that.
Was that a small enterprise fund that they had? Or?
So there's a local charity down there called the Trust, and I was unemployed at the time. I went to the Trust. They sorted me out with the SIA licence, which was a few £100. They set me up with an interview with the company that I later went on to work with, and so set me off in this path where now I've got the company. We employ about 70 people.
We've got 70 people now, Ryan.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, we've got 70 people.
Fantastic.
Well, we're actually, we got a mention on a few weeks ago on your podcast. We're one of 3 companies that was in the Times top 100 tech.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. So it's been good. It's been good, and I'm sort of glad that we're based in Inverclyde, and we'll be sticking there. Yeah.
So that's brilliant. A wee bit of connectivity there. We mentioned it a few weeks ago and we've managed to get you on the show, which is brilliant. Brilliant. So, well, look, for anybody listening or watching, this is the place to come for security. Go to the Safer Group, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and thanks for sharing your story with us.
Great. Thanks very much for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Ryan, it's brilliant to hear the story, and good for you going back to your roots in Inverclyde. Good on you, son, and keep in touch with the show and let us know how you're getting on.
All right, will do. Cheers, Tom.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
On the board we can't afford this week, we've got Fiona McKee, who's the owner, managing director, chief bottle washer at the HR practice.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Willie.
Pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Tell us a wee bit about yourself and a bit about the business.
So I founded HR practice in 2021 after being in a sort of global HR director role, and I decided to go out on my own. Quite a personal story actually, because my father-in-law was at end of life, and during that time I thought, do you know, is there not more to life than just like working for somebody? And it's something I always wanted to do. So I launched HR practice, and initially to look after M&A, integration and due diligence, because that was my kind of area of expertise. But in 2023 that kind of fell off, just a real sharp decline, and at the same time an accountant was asking me if I wanted to go into a joint venture. And I decided not to do that, but I absolutely seen there was an opportunity in that SME space for HR services. So we still provide M&A, but we also provide HR services to SMEs and entrepreneurial businesses, and we do that on a retained basis, and it's been hugely successful. So we're now up to a team of 4, rather than just myself that started. So yeah, it's going to.
And where are you based?
We're based in Hillington.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And just to tell the listeners, the viewers, how can they get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me directly, fiona.mckee@thehrpractice.co.uk, or info@thehrpractice.co.uk. They can go onto our website, or just give us a call.
I remember talking to you years and years ago when you told me about what you had idea, and I think I said to you back then, I thought it was a great idea. I've been involved in a few M&As in my time, so when we've bought companies, and you buy a company because you look at the balance sheet, but you don't look at the people.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
what you were talking about was kind of maybe psychometric charting on the people that you were going to inherit. And I thought that this was huge, and I've been dealing with a few very large VC companies who I think if they spent more time getting that type of due diligence done rather than on the numbers, I think a lot more companies would succeed. I think, to be fair, a lot more M&A would not happen.
Yeah, I think you're
Because
right.
people would pull out because the people were not a good fit.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting because since we last had a chat, I had a situation where I was employing a chief exec in America, and a huge recruitment company to do all the work. And you'll know that part of that now is they'll say this guy looks great, his numbers look great, his CV looks great, but we now want to do a kind of Belbins or a Myers-Briggs. We want to do a psychometric test on him. And what they do is they get a professor to interview this person. So after all of that process, the professor interviewed the guy and says, I think he's a good fit. So the recruitment company phoned me and said to me, oh, that's great. No, his guy said a thumbs up. But the professor says that I'll need to do a chat with him as well to see for a good fit.
Yeah.
And I says, you're going to be kidding. Right. And you'll not believe it. Anyway, I reluctantly agreed to do this. And after it, the guy changed his mind, saying, no, this guy, Willie, we built oil and water with you.
Ah, really?
Don't go for him.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of merit in what they wanted to do.
And actually, we don't do a lot of recruitment, but we'll do it for our clients. And we specifically only do it for our clients because we know their culture and we can establish a fit. And, you hear a lot of HR people saying, oh no, what to ask all these questions. You absolutely do to establish your capability. But it is about the fit, and it's how they'll fit in with that wider organisation.
I think, but when we originally had the chat, your idea about when it's a big M&A is much more important than just when a company starts.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're going to spend millions, maybe hundreds of millions.
Absolutely.
Right? And you think you know the people, but you really don't know them. And I think also as well, sometimes it's easy to put on a facade when you're trying to sell, where people yourself can get under that and find out this is not what that person is like.
Absolutely, and I think we're dealing with one just now because we still offer M&A services. We're dealing with one just now, and it's exactly that. Like, it's like figuring out like what is actually happening on the ground, and the target company are they look all squeaky clean, right? Because they weren't acquired. But, it's just getting under that and have a thorough look and seeing what's going on. And I suppose another thing for the HR practice is that I'll only hire people at heads of HR or HR directors because I want my consultants to be able to go out and talk to like entrepreneurs and SMEs and not just do like their handbooks and on all that. I want them to also talk about talent and talk about, look, how do we help you find the talent, but more importantly, how do you retain it? And we'll spend time talking about that and helping them with their growth strategy, and that's really important. And I think it's a differentiator in the market because I didn't just want to be, after doing all that M&A, just another HR consultancy.
So I believe you get 2 questions for the board. You can't
do.
afford this one.
I do. So first of all, Willie, what's been your most difficult business decision?
You'll believe that's an easy one for me. After, in the first 10 years of our business, we were primarily a company that serviced the licensed trade, the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
Right? So we built up our business in the first 10 years, working in pubs and clubs and restaurants and all that kind of stuff. And then in 1995, we had the opportunity of looking at doing a complete facilities management contract for Asda. Now, at this time, we were turning over about 10 million, and the contract with Asda was worth about 5 million. So it was a big leap for the company. But right at the same time, the brewers, Scottish brewers, tenants, all the people we dealt with, our main contracts up until that speed, asked us would we look at doing the beer pipe fitting right outside of the refrigeration. So this would have been a huge uplift in our business. And both of them were running at the same time. Both the tenders were running at the same time. And I remember having a board meeting, and with a chairman who represented Three Eyes on our board, a guy called Paul Neeson. And Paul asked us at the board meeting, we've got these two things running. If both of them come to fruition at the same time, what are you going to choose? Because we've agreed that trying to do both would probably kill us.
Yeah.
So I said to Paul, well, it's dead simple. We know that working with a licensed trade is our bread and butter. So there's no doubt about this at all, that what we should do is if we get a big contract, we're doing the pipe fitting, then we should go with that rather than going into the unknown with Asda. And 2 days before we were waiting for word coming back from Asda whether it had been successful or not, Scottish Brewers actually pulled the tender altogether and decided that they were not going to go down the route of outsourcing the brewers, the pipe fitting side. And 2 days later, we got nod from Asda that we'd won the contract. So I was going to pivot and go the other way. And what happened was through fate, or a wee bit of serendipity, that we got the contract, and it just shows you like the rest is history.
Yeah, things happen for a reason.
So that's an easy one. That always, people ask me that question and I always give them the same answer. That was the biggest decision that we had to make. And luckily we were helped to make that decision.
Yeah.
What's your other question?
My other question is that it's hard running the business, right? Like, you know, you've got lots of lots of plates spinning, and sometimes I find it hard to switch off. So how do you manage your business and personal life to try and get some kind of balance?
This is a really good question, and to say to everybody, this is really important that you get that balance. If it's all work and no play, that's a recipe for disaster. So I've been very, very fortunate that, you don't believe it, away back to when I was an apprentice, right? I used to do everything I could to make sure that I got the weekends off, right? And even when I was on standby, I was on emergency call out at the weekend. I better admit this. I should have been playing football on a Sunday afternoon, and depending where the team were playing, I would concoct a call for a supermarket in that area to go and repair the shop. And what I'd do is I'd go into the shop, show face, go and play the football match, and come back with the alleged part that I needed to fix the job. So I'm admitting that I don't know how many people want to claim me for their money back, but no, to answer your question, but it's vital. We used to, me and Susan would work 8 hours a week, but we would always try to do it Monday to Friday. Right, we always had time, and we always made time to have our time. Whether it's playing football back in the early days, or going to the football, or whatever it might be. And I would say to you that I always found time, and I encourage my guys to do that. I don't want guys in the office at 7 in the morning and 7 at night. Go home to your families. I want you to be productive for 8 hours a day, but have a break. So I would just say that it's vital. I've always managed to do it, and I would certainly recommend that, especially people like yourself who's got a business. You need that downtime. You'll always be thinking. I mean, you might be away fishing, you'll be thinking about the business. That's okay, that's fine. But as long as you feel as if you're away fishing.
And I think, you do that. It's always in your mind. You're always thinking about it. You're never really switching off. And people think that I'll have all the answers because my job in HR, like, well, they tell other people like how to do it, but it is hard. So that's really good advice.
It's tougher to start when you're trying to build a business, right? You'll work hard as you get a wee bit easier, but definitely find that. Definitely have holidays.
Oh, I do.
Definitely
I have them. I have them.
Right, definitely. Well, brilliant. Well, I wish you all the best. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Well, Tom, another great show. It's great to be back. So for all our viewers, And listeners, right, you can get us on Go Radio on a Sunday morning or at any time in whatever device you want to use, but you can now catch us on our YouTube channel, the Go Radio Business Show. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you next week.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.